Alright, so in this video I wanted to share what I've learned when it comes to modeling, texturing, and rendering cars in Blender. And I'll put up on the screen my first car. It looks awful. And here are some of my later car renders. So yeah, I'm far from the best. Like, there's a lot of good people out there doing cars and car modeling, all that. But I'm better than I was when I started, and that's all I can ask, you know? When you look up how to make a car in Blender on YouTube, you usually get videos where the method that's being used is we have drawings or blueprints of pre-existing cars, and then you use those to model the car. Here's an example where I've done that. It's a Honda NSX. And I'm not gonna go into detail about this method. There's great videos explaining this already. But in general, it's a good method to use if you want to model a specific car. Maybe you don't want to buy a model off the internet, or maybe a model of that car doesn't even exist. And then, this is a good way to do it. Keep in mind, if you want high quality blueprints, that's probably going to cost some money. Probably less than an actual 3D model, but yeah. There are free blueprints usually, but they're usually lower quality. So like you can see here, if I zoom in, it's pretty pixelated, but you can still get the overall shape. And you always have to complement with actual photos of the car, so you can see okay, wait, what's going on here? How does this shape look? And stuff like that. And yeah, this method is good for practice as well. And it's a good way for studying existing designs, learn from the masters, etc. I've done this 3 times myself, and I find it can be very time consuming. Cars are complicated and there's a lot of detail. Personally, I usually abandon the projects because it starts boring me, or I can't be bothered to finish. So here the back isn't even finished. Also, in general, when doing this, you want the mirror modifier. You get a plane, start doing this, placing out vertices. You get a mirror modifier, so it's mirrored on the x-axis. Then you can get a solidify modifier in the beginning and just keep having that on. This one's at 3 millimeters, a very low value basically. Or you can put it at the end, when you're done modeling everything. And then you also want a subdivision modifier, and that's going to give nice smooth surfaces, Another tip is to install Loop Tools. It's an add-on, free add-on, just get it. And it's a good add-on for modeling. It has some tools like flatten, relax, circle is pretty good. And basically flatten, if you pick some surfaces here or some faces, and then you press flatten, it's gonna make those flat, which can be useful. Circle, it's the same thing, but if you pick some vertices or whatever and press circle, it turns it into a circle, which can also be good and useful. Relax, it kind of just relaxes vertices. It only does something if they're kind of bent like this. And you press relax a few times, and it kind of relaxes it basically, as if it was a soft material, kind of. But yeah, that's a good add-on. And there are probably more add-ons that can be useful. Let me know in the comments if you know any good ones. Another method that I've used when modeling cars is to just use references. And this is for when I'm designing my own cars. Basically, I find pictures of cars that I want to have a similar style as. So for this car that I've made, I have a folder here full of pictures of cars that I want it to look similar to these. Kind of LMP1, old school 90s and 80s cars. And then I actually made a movie or a slideshow that runs on my second monitor while I'm modeling, just to imprint the inspiration in my head. I always have that in my peripheral, or just to look at, just to keep it keep in mind what a car looks like basically, and keep in mind what it is I'm sort of aiming for. So that's useful. And with that, you can take inspiration, you can sort of see what dimensions are used in general, ratios, etc. But then you put your own little spin on it. This is obviously very similar to those cars, but it's still like unique in its own, like it's its own car, you know? When I use that method, what I usually do when just starting off is I make a mesh, I put in circles that will be the wheel arches. So I put in one like this. Actually, the first thing I do is put in a square, or a cube, I mean. Put the viewport visibility or viewport display as wire, and then give that some reasonable dimensions. Like usually a car is like 2 meters wide, 5 meters long, and then maybe, I don't know, 1.5. That's a super low, like sports car kind of dimension. You can look up, like in general, what the dimensions are, and then you want to keep within that kind of, just to get an idea of where to put these wheel arches, and then that's kind of how you start modeling it. Put these kind of things here, and then you have your wheel arches, and then you just go from that, kind of delete these, connect that, and then you can just go crazy. Just make a shape. This looks great, of course. I mean, I'm just doing it quickly to show the absolutely basic. The topology is awful here. Obviously, you want to keep like all the faces, you want them to be squares, or have 4 vertices each. You want quads, and that's not really working out here, but you got to keep that in mind as well. That's the boring part, or like the difficult part. But let's say we fill this in like that. That's obviously not how you want to do it, but then you could just, that's basically what I did for the car I showed earlier. And now you have a car. It's more difficult than that, but that's like kind of how I started. You make the side profile, and then you go from there, basically. All right, when it comes to wheels, the first method that I used, that I learned from this video, which is great, by the way, go check it out. The method is this. You get a circle, flip it on the y-axis 90 degrees. Why does it not want to do that? Rotate on the z-axis, no, the y-axis. Okay, now this has 32 vertices, that's fine, but basically if you want 8 spokes, for example, you want 16 vertices, because we're gonna use this and we're gonna have every other vertice, or every other face is gonna like be extruded. But let's fill this in. This is also like, either you can do, I mean, there's ways of doing it. I mean, you could do this grid fill, that works. You can also do like some more here. It's not super important, but you do want quads, I guess, if you want to be a really good boy or girl, keep it quadded, and then just some similar on the other side. Ideally, you want a subdivision surface modifier, and that's also why you want quads, because if you don't, that's gonna mess up a bit. Maybe make the edges a bit, no, not yet actually, but you can do this. Select all of those. Let me put on screencast keys so you see what I'm doing. Pick those, alt click with that, and select checker deselect, and then you have every other spoke selected, so to speak. Then you can press alt E, extrude faces along normals, and then just do that, and now you have a wheel, basically. Congratulations, Congratulations, you won. And this method, it gives you a wheel. It can be kind of complicated though, because you have to, like, if you want to edit something, you have to do it at the same time for each one, like it has to be symmetrical. So it works. There are ways, but it can be a bit tricky to just edit everything at the same time. But it's an easy way to get a basic wheel shape, I guess. The other method, the better method that I'm using currently, or that I've used lately, is with a array modifier. So basically you get a plane, flip it on the y-axis. Probably should apply all transforms for this to work. That's actually super important. Like for the object or for the modifier to work properly, everything has to be applied. But basically you're gonna design one spoke, and if you want to be really cool, you can do just 1/2 of the spoke if the spoke is symmetrical. But let's say it is, so mirror modifier on the y-axis, and then you have, imagine this is one spoke. Let's pull it out a bit. Super basic shape. And then what you want is an array modifier. And you don't want the relative offset, you want an object offset. And we want an object, so what we're gonna add is an empty, and we have that. And then we go into the modifier, do the eyedropper tool, and select that empty. And it's important for both of these to have their transformations applied. So like these need to be 0 and these need to be 1, basically, otherwise it's going to be messed up. And then what you do is you just rotate it. And let's say we want 5 spokes. That's a pretty common configuration. So 5, we put that in the count. And then for the rotation, so here we want to rotate on the x-axis. So we have 360 degrees, that's one rotation, but then we divide by 5. And there we have it. And then you can just, edit 1/2 of this little rim here, and it's just gonna reflect on all of these. I guess, oh, that looks pretty cool. Wait, what did I do? That was what I did. Oh, that's kind of cool. And it's a great way to just make wheels. I guess we want a subdivision modifier as well. Crank that up, shade smooth. Look at that, that looks pretty cool. And then you would need probably to there's different ways of doing it, but you can add like a circle around it later, like the outer ring, so to speak. Why does this not rotate? There we go. Because that's what, wheels have, that they have an outer ring that the actual tire looks at or sits at. I'm not gonna explain how to make tires today because I don't want to. But you can do that as well. And here you have a wheel. I mean, it's not finished obviously, but that's the basic method, and I think you can figure the rest out. You're a smart person, you can figure it out. Go do it. Alright, so next I want to show how to make just a basic little car paint material. So let's go into the material preview, and then we pull up the shader tab here, the shader window. And the basic is, okay, let's say you want a metallic paint. You pull up the metallic, maybe lower the roughness. Let's pick a color that's a bit darker. That's kind of where metallic paints are the best, where they're usually a bit darker. Specular, don't touch the specular, but somewhere around there, And then you want a clear coat. You can just do one, but then in one video that I saw where somebody made like a car material, he showed you can bump it up. You can like put it to 1 billion or something, and then it becomes super shiny. It's almost like a metal. But yeah, 3 is pretty good, and it just becomes more shiny, because when I discovered like when it's at 1, it can kind of look not shiny enough sometimes. So 3 can be good, whatever. Let's put it to 3. And then to get like metallic flakes, you want a Voronoi texture. Control T to get the Node Wrangler. If you don't know what the Node Wrangler is, look it up, download it, whatever. Let's see how the Voronoi texture looks. Looks small, but you want the color actually. Separate color, that's what it's called. It used to be separate RGB. Anyway, plug in the color, and then you want to combine the color again, and that's it. Nothing happens in between. Just kidding. You want that. Do not connect the blue, and then put blue to 1, and then this is what it looks like. It looks like a normal map, and that's what we want. I'm pretty sure if you do this, then yeah, you still need the normal map node. Plug in the color, plug it into the normal, and then it's all about just adjusting the size first of all, and that's a bit extreme, so you just want to adjust the strength here, and you have a basic car material. Another thing I wanted to talk about is windows. So cars have windows. One basic thing you can do that's easy to render is you get a principled shader, bump up the metallic, lower the roughness, and you have like a mirror. You can use just a mirror. It can look kind of weird, I guess, as a window. But then you can also lower the alpha, so it's like, okay, now it's a window, and you can see through it. And that's super good, like, or it's that's easy to render compared to a glass shader, which you could also do. So remove the metallic and then do transmission. Now it acts as a window, but this can be, or it will be, heavier to render. Glass is you know, infamous for that, being difficult to render. Transmission roughness, you don't want to touch that. You can also just do like a black window, tinted windows, so roughness down, and it's black, and that's it. That's a window. That's if you basically, if you don't want to model an interior for the car, then just put black windows and nobody can see through them, and it's fine. But yeah, that's it for windows. Okay, so for lighting, you're either going to do it manually, so to speak, or use an HDRI. And when I say do it manually, I mean you build a little scene, maybe just a simple studio setup like this. I'm going to show you here. The simplest possible way is to just make a plane, go into edit mode, pick this edge, extrude on the z-axis, and pick that edge again, Control B to make a bubble, and then scroll up to give more edges, and give it a bit of a bend like this, shade smooth, and that's a studio setup. Like, that's kind of how they sometimes have it in just in photography. They just have this as a blank background. Then you put your car here, and that's it pretty much. Then you place little lights around here to light your car basically. So HDRIs can give nice realistic results, but they can be kind of bad as a background. So you probably want to build like a little environment like I've done here. There's a little road, some water, and some mountains in the back, bit of a fence going on. And that's just so it's like not just a plain, the car and then the HDRI as a background. That can it can look kind of bad, and I've done that too many times because I was lazy. But if you build, like, if you combine an HDRI with like a built environment, a little bit like this, then it can give some nice lighting basically. For anybody wondering about these landscapes or these mountains, I just used the Add Mesh and Landscape add-on. So you get mesh landscape, and you can like use some settings to get, I think I used the default setting for this, and then I just kind of scaled it, you know, made it wider, put it around the scene. A third kind of lighting setup that I've done is I make a little room or a studio like this, and then I put kind of repeated patterns of lights in the ceiling, and that's it pretty much. This is just, yeah, it's a circle and then 2 array modifiers, basically. One on the x-axis and then one on the y-axis, so it gives this like kind of grid pattern. Sometimes I add little like complementary lights just to light up like the side or the front, just to like bring up the brightness a little bit. But I feel like this gives some really cool results. It's pretty good to show the shape of the car, and you get some cool patterns on with the reflections and stuff. And I mean, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Bye.